Okay, so this one's going to be somewhat different. Today's video is dedicated to those Jehovah's Witness believers who are disfellowshipped, faded, or fallen away, but who are still deeply sympathetic. Trust me, the physically out, mentally ins are by far the most sophisticated animal of Jehovah's Witness. For why, these sympathies may be doctrinal, they may be familial, economic. There are endless reasons why one may remain sensitive or soft toward the group. So this one's for the Pomis. Stick around. Hey peeps. Okay, so the Pomi. Unfortunately for those of us who've left, Pomis are not easy for us to pin down. You see, something I've devoted a lot of time to on this channel is making clear that not all witnesses are of the mindless, kind of servile, robotic variety. Oh, believe me, there are plenty of those types too. But I've met a cross range from ones who really believe in their heart of hearts that this is the one and only truth and are just out because they feel they can't live up to the high standards, to still others who are incredibly informed, articulate, rational, and who just catch the odd meeting. I find the latter among the most interesting of witnesses. You see, for people like us who've left, especially if you left recently, we want the JWs to be these feeble, kind of dim, sheep-like, pallid-looking things, don't we? Because isn't it easier to portray them this way as opposed to intelligent, rational, and complicated people who may actually have a point from time to time? I contend with this every time I sit down to write my scripts. Don't misunderstand me, I feel tremendously seated in my unbelief. But when you meet one of these rare kind of Jehovah's Witnesses, it will shake you a little. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm frequently made uneasy by the fact that some of the most intelligent and well-informed people I know are religious believers. So anyway, you may be wondering what the point of this video is. I don't really have any advice or anything I'm working towards in this one. I just wanted to say some funny things about the Pomis. You might get a chuckle out of this story. As you know, people are dropping out of this religion like flies for all kinds of reasons. And I have this running joke for ones who are out but who sort of pride themselves in still believing, you know. Every now and then you'll meet ones like this. You probably know some yourself. They'll often say stuff like, "Oh yeah, I'm imperfect, but I'm at least humble enough to take the discipline. I'm not like you, Derek, who up and decided not to believe it anymore." You know, as if to say that I think truth is really just a matter of choice or intellectual chic, or I'm just keeping up this narrative to excuse leaving. It's an incredibly judgmental and uppity thing to say to someone. So it's become this running joke where I tell my other unbelieving friends about it, and they'll ask, "So what happened? Did you guys still talk after that?" And my response is always the same. "Of course not. They're disfellowshipped. Why would I talk to them?" I mean, it's obvious I'm kidding. I talk to everyone. You know how I feel about shunning. I'm generally heartbroken for the Pomi, actually, because I think many of them deal with so much internal conflict. But there's kind of a sad truth in that joke I just told. The scriptures say that it's a willful act of sin that is unforgivable. Even if my unbelief was due to some misapprehension on my part, which of course I doubt, but let's just allow it for the sake of argument. Our position as unbelievers is still far more excusable than the willful sinner. That's according to their own standards. In the Bible, God has always been lenient with those who are sincerely quote-unquote misguided. Look at how he spared the Ninevites in Jonah's day, or how there was propitiation under the Mosaic law for sins of ignorance in Leviticus 5 verse 17 to 19. Or think of how God forgave the Pharisee Saul for persecuting the first century Christians prior to his conversion. It's funny, you know, there are a few within my own family who were immensely judgmental, gossipy, at times downright slanderous, who did next to nothing for the faith for decades, basically just memorial attendees. We all know the type. I can remember the awful things they said about me when I stopped pioneering, only to discover a few short years later that they ended up marrying unbelievers themselves or got into trouble. The irony is so overwhelming at times, I'd often fantasize about sending an email congratulating them on their marriage, but just to set the record straight, even I, after fading away and eventually speaking out on YouTube, I'm still technically in better standing scripturally. And then screw with them a little at the end by saying, hell, by mere happenstance, at least I never married an unbeliever or got disfellowshipped, and probably attend more meetings than they do. I'd love to see their reaction to that. Such is the plight and cognitive dissonance of many a POMI out there. It can really be a sorry state of affairs. Now, of course, it's a mixed bag, and I'm speaking in generalities, but the POMI can be very difficult to love, too, because they associate their entire self-worth with this article of belief alone. This fear of being labeled an apostate, combined with the inexecutable standards of the governing body, sometimes results in just the most blatant forms of hypocrisy. I'll give you another example. Here's an instance where the guy wasn't even disfellowshipped. So I knew this one brother ever since I was like 12 years old. As long as we've ever been acquainted, he barely lifted a finger for the religion. Like, I'm telling you, he was just a memorial and convention attendee for years and years. I can count on one hand how many times I actually saw him out in the ministry. He was likable enough, and he called himself a believer, but yeah, just a glorified seat warmer, and a lousy one at that. Anyway, we kind of hit it off when I stopped pioneering, and we were the best of pals for about 6 to 7 years. He'd often speak about his doubts, like how the witness position on beards, birthdays, gambling, and association never made any sense to him. In fact, right around the time all of this Australian Royal Commission business began picking up steam, I asked him if he still believed the governing body was really God's only channel in this time of the end, as they put it. And he genuinely retorted, I'm really not sure, Derek. Now, around this time, my grandma was dying, and people started systematically preventing me from visiting her in the hospital, despite her and I always being on the very best of speaking terms. So I spoke out about it. I spoke out against it in their own words, too, with scripture and watchtower references. And just like that, my best friend, who never did a bloody thing for the faith, never even understood the doctrines, who on more than 3 separate occasions gave me enough evidence to get him dealt with judicially if I wanted, arbitrarily began shunning me. We were best friends. I was even in his wedding party. This guy was never dealt with for his so-called sins, was a total hypocrite, never did a thing for the faith, and just up and stops talking to me. So when I took him up on it, he said, well, I want to do more spiritually, and you're getting in the way of that. To this day, and mysteriously, he still does nothing for the faith. This is the kind of stuff that happens among the POMIs. You never know what you're really going to get with them. I don't mean to denigrate this group. As stated earlier, it's true that not every witness is a mindless drone with indefensible beliefs. I guess if there's a point to this video, it's don't underestimate the Jehovah's Witnesses either for their level of intelligence nor their capacity for just glaring Pharisaic hypocrisy. Then there are other POMIs who are totally cool. They kind of agree with the witnesses but are down to earth. They don't shun. They go out for beers after work. They participate in Halloween and Christmas parties, etc., etc. And there are many of that type too. I just reconnected with someone like this recently. They exist, and I give them a lot of credit. I'm not trying to create caricatures or stereotypes. Now, if you're a POMI, and of course I'm speaking of the more fundamentalist or literalist variety, I know you're taking a huge risk in challenging your beliefs and listening to this. But think seriously about the situation you're in. According to Scripture, you're actually on rockier ground than anyone. Works without faith is dead, just as its opposite, faith without works, is dead. What does it hurt to just give the other side of the argument a listen? You're no better off playing this role of false modesty. By your own doctrines, belief is not enough to buy your salvation. Perhaps take the inflexible, untenable standards of the Watchtower as a sign of its fallibility and imperfection. If you have the truth, trust me, it will survive investigation. If you do not have the truth, at least you can find some peace of mind from all the mental manipulations that go on. You may still choose to stay, but you'll at least retain some small measure of mental and spiritual freedom. For goodness sake, they've taken enough from you. Don't let them make a hypocrite out of you too. Anyway, I could say much more on the topic, but I guess we'll leave it there for now. Tell me your thoughts about pomies below in the comments. And if you're physically out, mentally in, drop me a line too. I like speaking with everyone who stops by. This is Derek London. Till next time. Hey guys, did you like this video? You know what to do. And if something I mentioned today resonated with you, click one of them cards on this screen. I have lots of related content sure to interest you. Thanks as always for your views, and we'll see you next time.